Okay, we are ready for Chapter 8 in Mrs. Noodle-Kugel, and I think we only have 3 chapters, Chapter 8, Chapter 9, and Chapter 10 left. So we're getting close to the end already. Feels weird, doesn't it? Mr. Fuzzface had on a white apron and a white chef's hat. Mrs. Noodle-Kugel had on a flowered apron. "Here are aprons for you, children," Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said. "You may help me mix the gingerbread dough." It's harder to see, but just kind of got a kitchen counter there. We're starting to mix things up. Do you see Mr. Fuzzface down? Oops. Sorry. See Mr. Fuzzface down here in the corner. Can't see my finger, can you? Right there. There we go. Nick and Maxine helped Mrs. Noodle-Kugel measure flour, molasses, butter, and ground ginger into a big bowl. Also, brown sugar and cinnamon. Then they took turns mixing with a big wooden spoon. "I will add salt and egg." Oops, see, I didn't change my voice again. "I will add salt and egg and baking powder," Mr. Fuzzface said. Mix it well, Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said. "Now it is time to roll out the dough," Mr. Fuzzface said. "Then I will call the mice." "What will the mice do?" Maxine asked. "We will show you," Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said. "Mr. Fuzzface, please call the mice." The 4 mice scrambled up onto the kitchen table. Now the mice will lie down on the cookie dough, Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said, "and we will trace around the mice with toothpicks. This way we will have mouse-shaped cookies. Be careful not to tickle the mice, children. They are quite ticklish." So you see how they're going to lay down on the cookie dough and they're going to trace them so that the cookies look like mice. Maxine and Nick traced around the mice with toothpicks. The mice giggled. Mrs. Noodle-Kugel took the mouse-shaped pieces of dough and put them on a big metal cookie sheet. The mice themselves made cookie shapes, but they were so far-sighted that the shapes did not look like mice. They looked like blobs. The outlines of mice the children made with toothpicks will be the ginger mice, Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said. And the cookies the mice have made will be ginger blobs. "Is this sanitary?" Nick asked. That means, is it clean? Like if you were baking cookies, you probably wouldn't want mice anywhere near your cookies because mice aren't very clean little animals, but in a fiction book, it's different because it's not real. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Noodle-Kugel asked. "I mean we're going to eat cookies made from dough that had mice laying on them," Nick said. "Oh, we won't eat the ginger mice, only the ginger blobs," Mrs. Noodle-Kugel said. "The ginger mice are just for fun." "So we will not eat cookies made from dough that had mice lying on it, but it's okay to eat cookies mice made with their paws?" Nick asked. "Mr. Fuzzface, did the mice wash their paws before making cookies?" Mrs. Noodle-Kugel asked. "What?" Mr. Fuzzface said. That's the end of Chapter 8. I hope they wash their hands if they're going to eat those ginger blobs. See ya a different day.